All right, hey guys, what is going on? Intelligent Cycle here. I'm just gonna talk about some things real quick. Um, we got of course Daredevil Born Again season 2 is coming out on Disney Plus March the 24th, which I believe that's on a Tuesday. So yeah, it's gonna be on Disney Plus, and I think it's gonna be exclusively on the internet by Wednesday or Thursday, sometime around that range. But just gonna go over some things real quick. Of course, if we all know, I haven't seen the trailers. I have seen like the look of the of Matt Murdock and Daredevil suit, and because he's gonna be back to wearing all black, all in the all black suit like he did in the Netflix series. So of course, on March 24th, he's sporting his new look this time around, a costume that shows producers that are calling the blackout suit, unique look of the man without fear, featuring a black version of his familiar armored costume. Hold on, guys. I'll be right back. Oh. Huh? All right, guys. Back to what I was saying earlier. So of course he's going to be wearing a black suit. Daredevil's going to be wearing the black outsuit. Man without fear, all black version of his familiar armored costume. But perhaps the fans, as to series star Charlie Cox, it also is familiar version MCU version of the hero with the iconic DD logo on his chest. Obviously, it's hinted over the years that I love to graduate to the DDs on the chest plate. Cox recently told 8OL, but my costume is interesting because there it is, so cool and such a delight and an honor to wear. But what feels good is I'm pulled into two different directions. There's a day on set on season 2 when I was pulling on the costume and it was late at night. I had too much dinner. I was squeezing this thing on and feeling dreadful and probably pretty grumpy about it. But when I walk outside, there's tons of fans. I could literally gasp of hearing the black suit with the D's, and suddenly I was reminded, oh, this is pretty cool. Of course, how he got the Daredevil black suit, how that happened. Explained the blackout suit came when the production team realized that they could simply spray paint an old red suit and make it black, but stencil the DDs, and they reminded in red. And how we got the DDs out of it, she says. We're really excited about the way it came together. The life is in danger. Charlie Cox said that there was characters that are at the start of season 2. They're literally squatting above a restaurant. They literally go out at night. How dangerous the city of New York has become, full of vigilantes, and for Matt Murdock in particular. So he's painted in his red suit black, and there's a reason for it. But of course, over this other season, as more action takes place, the black starts to strip away, and the red comes through underneath. It's such a great idea. And of course, the first Daredevil suit unique to the MCU. According to the showrunner, executive producer Dario Scartapane, we don't get to see the transformation of the old red suit to the new blackout suit. He can picture how it all happened and how it ties Matt Murdock's unique relationship with Vincent D'Onofrio's Mayor Wilson Fisk Kingpin, and then it's almost like this scene never ended up with the screen of Murdock spray painted the suit, but spray painted the suit black because he needs to be in the shadows before the things happen in the fire in the first episode. Believing DD's because he wants Fisk to know who he is, and once he had that picture in mind, then it goes to the visual development team. I think Sana Anima said the spray paint starts wearing off after each battle. So yeah, that's a really cool way of, kind of just spray painting the old red suit black and having the DD logos on it, to kind of know and give an idea, when he faces up in combat and battle, which Wilson Fisk Kingpin. I think it gives pretty much an idea of, Daredevil is pretty much meant to be taken seriously, which he's always is. Matt Murdock is always meant to be taken seriously. The man behind the suit and cape and everything, man behind the suit and the armor and cape and everything. So I feel like that's a thing where he's pretty much going to get eyes focused on him and everything paid attention to. You got a world full of vigilantes, a world in this area, where in this space that he has, to protect the areas in the city of New York, his home, pretty much his protection, Hell's Kitchen, pretty much all of it is his protection. The loss of his friend has burned on his shoulders, battling with the Punisher, Bullseye. You got so many different people and committed foes that he is battling for so long. He has to just really be adapted into the kind of environment for his soul to really fully, for his soul, to really really adapt, and knowing that he really just doesn't really have a whole lot of family to really look at, really look after, to really calm to, and of course, being a job as a lawyer, in his own company, he has just morals and compass and identities. So in the first season of Born Again, he just pretty much relied on the law to really try to go into the right in his full command. But when he realizes the law is not really abiding by their judgment and justifications, he feels like he wants to take matters into his own hands. So he takes matters into his own hands, and after a while, Mayor Fisk, Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin, Mayor Wilson Fisk, he kind of looks at him like he still has his own ideas and morals, but they're not along the same lines of what he had once thought of before. And like I said, he still has vindications and regrets of Wilson Fisk and everything. And Wilson Fisk has no respect for vigilantes whatsoever, no respect for people like a Matt Murdock, like a Daredevil. So you kind of know they all have their distance towards each other. So that's the thing that I think is very important to pay attention to, and also to pay attention to some things that I feel like in some hits in later Marvel movies and later Marvel installments and Marvel properties, I feel like there's a lot of things that happens, that's going to happen. Of course, the things that happen with Punisher, things that happen with Karen Page, things that happen with Matt Murdock. It's going to be some things and some issues that go along the way. And even Kingpin, as far as the new mayor, which I feel like is going to happen in this season, I want to see how that's going to be taken about, how that's going to be taken about. And I want to know how Punisher ends up breaking out of prison. And I think it's a DDoC. I want to know how that's gonna play out and fare out, because that was very important, because I've seen hints and bits and pieces and trailers that was kind of jarring. So I hope in season 2 they kind of explore, and mainly explore the lore and explore more about Matt Murdock and Daredevil like they did in the Netflix series, man, and explore more with other villains, vigilantes, and foes, and other competitors like they did, like, of course, and even in Born Again with the White Tiger stuff. I really feel like they need to do more in that lore, and then don't move more in that line that really aligns with what he's going for. I think is very important. So yeah, those are the things I kind of really think is very important that we really need to pay attention to when this season comes out. And here I'll read more about, of course, the suit, and also more about Bullseye, where he says Bullseye gets a comics accurate costume. Wilson Bethel is also back for a new season as Dex Poindexter, aka Bullseye. His loyalties have shifted over the years, and so have his costume choices. He even dressed up as a copycat Daredevil at one point, but then he got the new, now he got the new suit in season 2. It's pretty comic accurate, one at that. And Bullseye continues to evolve both as a character and in terms of how he's represented in the costuming. Scarlet Payne says, but for Bullseye to kind of go from a legitimate FBI agent to assassin to criminal to other stuff, that is important. That was important. I don't want to give too much away, but feels like he's on a mission of good this season, so he thinks. And Bullseye's costuming, there's a lot given to that. There's a lot of thought given to that. Daredevil Born Again Season 2 is brutal, relentless, according to Josh Wild in the comicbookmovie.com. Daredevil Born Again Season 2 is brutal, relentless, tour de force, and a Marvel masterstroke that allows Charlie Cox, Wilson Bethel, Vincent D'Onofrio, and the entire cast to shine. The insane action risk among MCU's best and largely flawless take on Daredevil's world. Wilson Bethel even has ideas what he wants to look like in season 3, which just started production. Amount adds that the actors have always been involved in the costume and the production design that goes into creating their characters. They've been living on those characters longer than we have, she says. Yeah, I can't wait to see what they're gonna do with Wilson Bethel, Bullseye. I think that's gonna be very important and very key. And to hear a few people from comic book websites and online comic book websites and everything giving their praise to it. I saw Zach Pope and Austin Burke, their take on Born Again season 2. I think it's gonna be a lot of things that's gonna happen that's really gonna be important to really have a close eye, really pay attention to, as I explained earlier on. That yeah, it's gonna be a lot of changes. It's gonna be a lot of things, a lot of courses that's gonna be really rectified and taken. Uh, and the updates pretty much is gonna be on the task force. Wilson Fisk as the mayor, and the people that's following up under him, what they're gonna do, and also there's gonna be some things as far as like, um, Matt Murdock and his company. What's gonna be like with them? Of course, Karen Page back into the fold. How is Matt Murdock feeling since what happened with the death and the murder of his best friend and Foggy. So it's gonna be some things that there's gonna be some things that's gonna be added to. I feel like it's gonna be more drama, way more storylines than what we already known and once known, and what we already seen from season 1, and how it's gonna evolve. I feel like it's gonna evolve into a much higher level and much higher stakes. But we'll see moving forward. It's still a couple days away. I'm gonna probably do more updates and more news as it comes along. We'll see how things go. But moving on to the next topic that I wanted to get to and discuss is the latest Of course, if you did not know, I was looking at hip hop news. I was looking at rap news that's been going around the fire. So, J. Cole, if you did not know, rapper from Fayetteville, North Carolina, rapper, songwriter, producer, MC. He has came to a first interview in like pretty much over 15 years. He has pretty much talked to Nadeska Alexis from Apple Music, who used to be on Complex Music News and Complex News. She is a very well-known hip-hop rap journalist, and she asked J. Cole a couple of questions about mainly a lot of questions in particular, but in particular through the Drake and Kendrick Lamar beef, and addressing the apology that he said to Kendrick Lamar. To sum it up pretty much in his own words, he said he felt the kind of, tension and backlash, and really wanted to clear the air and clear how he personally feels about why he did and why he apologized. He felt that an hour before. He said he told his wife, and his wife was pretty much crying, like in front of him, because deeply it hurt him to make the 7 Minute Drill, the record that was pretty much on My Delete Later, that was off that album a couple years ago, and how he was very, very distraught and very emotionally detached from everything that was surrounding the whole beef and everything. He said he had genuine love for both the guys, and he hate to see the world tearing down on both of them, having to pick one over the other. And he also, in this interview, not only talked about them, but he also talked about the way you process music, and how, releasing and dropping records 12 o'clock at night, 12 o'clock a.m. at night, and early in the midnight, early in the morning. He didn't like those kind of odds. He was also expressed so much about the way the industry changes, how you consume music, also the way how the album process, how the album process for the consumer and versus the artist who's releasing it. He was talking about that. He also talked about going back to his hometown, 2014 Forest Hills Drive, back home in Fayetteville. They go over the creation of the Fallout process and making it, which was very interesting, which I'll talk about that later on. But the whole, what he said about the whole Kendrick Lamar and Drake beef and how he apologized and how he addressed it. Now, for what I was told from people inside the scenes, he really got ran into by a couple of people that was inside of TDE. Mainly one of them is Schoolboy Q, and he told J. Cole to kind of step away and step out of the beef, step out of the way, because it's about to get real ugly. It was about to get real personal, between Drake and Kendrick, like, because they got 12 years of history, behind their hatred, but really them disliking each other for a long period of time. It was been 12 years since Drake and Kendrick have been both going back and forth, throwing subliminal shots, straight out flat lines, dissing each other, addressing them in like interview style process making. And speaking of people that are super jealous and hyperbolic and hypersensitive, Drake was that way back in the day for a while until in recent time he kind of like chilled and had the cooler temperature. But they've had a long history of disliking each other for a while. So with J. Cole kind of expressing how he has certain different levels of understanding and common ground but for both of them, and how he had genuine love for both of them, it kind of aligns, and especially with the apology, and aligns with his spirit and aligns with his mental focus, because he was just focusing on trying to create and craft the music, craft an album, and the Fallout that he'd been making for over 8 years. He'd been pushing promotion forward a record, from the 2020 ad campaign of the Fallout coming soon during what was going on with the whole presidential election. Then, of course, he did 1985, the intro to the Fallout. Outro, but intro to the Fallout. He did that. Then he also ended up, making 5 different iterations of the record, which he talked about in this interview with Nadeska. And he also expressed so much about just the creative process and how it was exhausting. And how him and Ebe and how him and his other guy, I forget this other guy, start with an M, how they was coming up with the project and how it took them such a while to do. And then while it took them a while to do it, it was a process that it took such a while to really get going. So yeah, during this whole battle, during this whole beat, and as Schoolboy Q told him this, he kind of just told him to kind of just step out the way and move away from what could have been possibly been really ugly and what could have been hurting not only friendships but hurting people's careers at one point. And it kind of just startled J. Cole a little bit and kind of what made him forced to just go out and address and clear the air and apologize. And it doesn't speak to him as a sign of weakness. It speaks to him as a sign of clarity, because he's all about J. Cole's always been about integrity. He's always been about integrity, honesty, and loyalty. That's just what he's always been about his entire career. Yeah, of course, he's like every other artist, like every other MC. You got to step into the ring and try to challenge folks on a lyrical sparring. But not when it's to a point where it's going to get personal. But you have to do it in a way where it's sparring, where it's like you back and forth. You constantly challenging for the crown and for the throne. And like every other rapper being braggadocious, you got to feel some way of braggadocious and spitting how you feel like you're the best at what you've done and what your craft is. Just like anybody in the job market space or in the YouTube space that, is competitively, trying to outsell and outduel and outbid the other competitor, the other competitor's store market, or how to bid and outduel other people on YouTube to drop the video to meet the algorithm. There's a lot of things that happen that make it that seem that way, of trying to outbeat and try to outdo it with the algorithm. So it's a lot of comparisons that could happen in real time that you can look at. Even in the NBA, in the NBA, people always try to compare other ball players to each other to see who's the best at this, who's the best at that, who's the best at this position, who's the best at that position. It happens a lot all the time, especially with rappers. People try to compare with them all the time, but they never do this with rock music. They never do this with country music. They never do this with black metal or death metal or thrash metal, hair and glam metal. They never do this with pop music. They never do this with R&B artists. They'll say who's better between either R&B artists, but they never try to compare that while trying to tear the other artist down. And that's what J. Cole was completely against and why he stepped out the way. And, a lot of people criticize him for it. A lot of people call him all kinds of different names, and I mentioned in podcasts because specific podcasts was calling him J-Fold, calling him soft, calling him this, calling him that, calling him all kinds of G's and F words and all that. I don't even want to say too much of that, but just know that people was calling him out of his name for no reason. And it just was so much sitting negatively and making people's skin crawl, including my own, because I didn't like it at all. So it wasn't a sign of weakness at all that he apologized, and it wasn't a sign of weakness at all of making point Antonio and how he felt about Drake. It was a sign of clarity. But of course, both of them got both Kendrick and Drake, like many of us, got the egotistical kind of mentality. They're not gonna take that as a way of like Cole is clearing his conscience. They took it as a way of like we're trying to be competitive. Like Kendrick said in Whacked Out Murals, F apology, I want to see y'all geeked up. He don't want to hear nothing about no having a mental state of mind and mental clarity. He want to see y'all geeked up. He want to see y'all compete against one another. That's why he pretty much said and like that at the big three. It's just him. It's just big me. So it's just like you gotta understand. Yeah, Kendrick is not gonna take it in that kind of manner. But I heard a conversation that they both had that really was interesting. And that kind of made Cole feel a different kind of way about Drake. And I feel like with the whole birthday blizzard, which I broke that down a few months ago, is why it was a different time frame. So with all that being said, I think what J. Cole was saying makes sense to him and in his mind and in his spirit, and I respect that from him because it takes a lot of courage from another man to really address and really say how he feels and really do the things that he does and do it in a way where it feels like it's authentic and genuine to the artist himself. So yeah, very cool and very noble what J. Cole did. Again, some people may not take it that kind of way, because he made the record 7 minute drill and people are not going to let that down, because he jumped out the window first. But when you really think about it, Kendrick kind of ignited the whole thing with the whole like that verse because in first person shooter, Cole did not take that record when he said, we did be like we started a league, like as a way of saying somebody's better than one another. He was taking it as a way of signs of encouragement that we created this thing in this hip hop game as a way of a sparring of a competitive sport. Like we started all that. We the top artists of our generation. It wasn't really anything that was like a diss per se or asking Kendrick to be on the feature with somebody he doesn't like. He wanted to really see how it was gonna go. So yeah, those are just my analysis on what the case was with Cole and in the interview with Cole and Nadeska, which is pretty cool, pretty interesting. That he has these kind of positions and stances because I felt a similar way towards what Cole did, and I let that stuff back in the day. It was a couple of years ago. We're gonna let that be 2 years ago, and I don't want to keep bringing this up, but yeah, those are just my thoughts on the interview. I thought the interview was pretty good, pretty decent. Nadeska really did a good job explaining how she felt about not only what Cole was saying, but of course Cole was going into detail about the album. I felt like that was pretty interesting and unique. So yeah, really cool way and really cool ideas. All right, so tell me what you guys think about this down in the comment section. And the last story I'm going to talk about, well, it's not really a story, but the last thing I want to talk about is of course, the NBA. So first thing I want to talk about with the NBA is, of course, you don't know Kevin Durant. The Houston Rockets end up winning by one, but that's not even really the thing. The story is Kevin Durant with his added points, 27 points. He ends up becoming the fifth all-time leading scorer with 32,794 points, surpassing Michael Jordan's 32,685. Excuse me, 32,685 points. He ends up passing. KD ends up passing Michael Jordan with 32,794. So yeah, with all that being said, that was really good for KD. Excuse me. Yeah, I'm glad that he did that. That was a really big accomplishment, and it helped out the Rockets really well because the Rockets offense is struggling because not only they don't have a point guard, they don't really have the kind of defenders to really apply the pressure. And again, with guys like Amin Thompson or Jabari Smith, it's not really getting hot in the game. They really kind of struggle and they really kind of falter. And then once they don't have no bench that can really provide the spark, they begin to have other teams reel them in and come back compete with them, and that's a problem. And it's gonna be a problem for them in the postseason. So if I'm the Houston Rockets, I'm still worried a little bit. And if you're the Miami Heat, show signs of encouragement, of course. With Bam Adebayo's 32 points and Tyler Herro's 5, you still got enough gas left in the tank to really make a run in the postseason. So the Miami Heat are probably make the postseason, but they're right now they're looking like, because of the 38 and 33 record with the loss, they're gonna be in the play-in tournament. So that's gonna be looking scorched and scary for them. And I believe the Houston Rockets are in fourth place. We have the LA Lakers winning at the buzzer by the score of 105 to 104 over the Orlando Magic. They moved to 46 and 25, winners of 9 straight games. Pretty much it's been Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves. They have been the main catalyst, the main stars. Luka not out the bench, hitting 3 out of 4 3-pointers, including one of the game sealing 3-pointers with less than 5 seconds left to go on the shot clock in the fourth quarter. Jackson Hayes is pretty solid. And for the Orlando Magic, excuse me, the story of the game was pretty much Paolo Banchero's struggles, and along with Desmond Bain and Jamal Cain. They both struggled from the field, did not play that well, and that pretty much did them in. That was a big problem. And moving forward, they're going to have a lot of big problems if they don't continue to get this thing together and right the wrongs. Really solid win for the Lakers. I'm really impressed with how they're playing. Their offense has been getting a whole lot better. Their defense is getting better. And they're only going to get better in the postseason. So I would not be surprised if the Lakers make a little bit of a run in the postseason if they continue to play this way and play this well. And then last but not least, the Denver Nuggets winning by 16 over the Portland Trail Blazers. And we're going to talk specifically from the perspective of you got Nikola Jokic, Aaron Gordon, Cam Johnson, and Jamal Murray all in double figures. Christian Brown also in double figures for 15 points. You know, he was efficient from the field. But the bench for the Nuggets is really stepping up in these past several weeks. It doesn't matter if it's Peyton Watson or Bruce Brown or Tim Hardaway, Julian Strother. Like, they finding ways to get the job done and finding ways to win ball games. You know, the story today being their bench. Hopefully their bench continues to roll on and really help Jamal Murray and Jokic out. I really hope they do that. But all right, guys, that's all I got. That's all I got for you guys today. I'm gonna be heading up on out of here. Give me some rest. And I want to thank y'all for tuning in. Like, share, and subscribe. And have a good one. I'm out. Peace.